There's a moment right before a leader speaks when the room leans in. Anticipation hangs in the air. People want to know what's coming. They want to know what matters, what to make sense of next. And then it hits. A flat message, a monotone delivery, a message that sounds like it was edited by committee, reviewed by a legal consultant, and then smoothed over until nothing sharp remained. What should feel electric feels like a shrug. Not because the subject doesn't matter, but because the subject arrived padded and overprocessed. The spark is gone, and in its place is a kind of manufactured calm, polished to the point of unreality. The words sound safe, but they don't feel alive. What's underneath that safety, more often than not, is fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being wrong, fear of being too exposed, fear of losing control of the room or the narrative. That fear is rarely acknowledged, but it leaks into everything. The tone, the pacing, the reliance on stock phrases, the choice to read a script instead of speak as a person. In trying to protect the message or themselves, leaders sometimes drain all the life from it. And the moment collapses, not because the information is flawed, but because the delivery signals distance instead of presence. It signals control instead of connection. And the message, no matter how important, lands with a thud. The higher the stakes, the more tempting it is to retreat. Leaders may tell themselves that they're being measured or professional, but often they're hedging. They don't want to be misquoted. They don't want to stir up emotion. They don't want to invite follow-up questions they don't know how to answer. So they flatten the tone, they sand off the edges, they choose safety over impact. That's why some of the most boring communications happens in the most critical moments. Layoffs, restructuring, crises, budget changes, vision shifts. Leaders know the message matters, but fear turns the moment into a performance of control rather than an invitation into shared understanding. It doesn't always look like fear. It looks like bullet points. It looks like a 23-slide deck. It looks like reading from a prepared statement, eyes fixed just above the audience. It sounds like, "We're exploring multiple options at this time." Or, "We remain committed to excellence in service delivery." Fear hides behind abstraction. It hides behind jargon. It hides behind being professional. The trouble is, boring communication doesn't feel neutral to the audience. It feels like evasion. It feels like condescension. It feels like, "We don't trust you enough to tell you what's really going on." People may not be able to name it in the moment, but they can feel it. The tone doesn't match the stakes. The delivery doesn't invite engagement. The message sounds like it came from someone trying to manage liability instead of trying to lead, and over time, that has a cost. It builds distrust. It signals that the leader doesn't think the audience can handle complexity or hard news or ambiguity. It makes people feel small, or worse, invisible. Not all fear comes out in bland statements. Sometimes it wears a louder mask. They're leaders who overcompensate, who become performative, overly polished, overly energetic in ways that feel disingenuous. They smile too much. They use humor to deflect. They pump up the room while keeping the substance on mute. This too is fear. It's just louder. Other times, it's more internal. Leaders realize midstream that their message is muddled, and in their panic to recover, it gets worse. They feel the room slipping away. They double down on complexity or speed or detail, hoping to regain control. But it's like communication quicksand. The more you thrash, the deeper you sink. The hard truth is that every leader brings fear into the room. The question isn't whether it's there. The question is whether it's driving the message. Fear-driven communication often lacks clarity. Not because the content is unclear, but because the emotional posture behind it is guarded. Leaders are afraid of being wrong, of being questioned, of being misread, even of being fully seen. But when leaders acknowledge that fear and still choose clarity, they build trust. They invite people into something that's real. They say, without saying, "This is hard, but I believe you can handle it. I believe that we can handle it together." So, what does it look like to communicate with courage? It doesn't mean full transparency all the time. It doesn't mean speaking without preparation. It means letting tone and body language match the message. Giving people language that respects their intelligence and emotional awareness. It means owning uncertainty when it's real. Courageous communication doesn't just deliver information, it builds relationship. It trades perfection for presence. It replaces abstraction with connection. And in a world full of noise, clarity powered by courage is anything but boring. If you're sitting with a message that matters, something complex, emotional, or high stakes, don't let fear flatten it. You don't have to wrestle it alone. Fathom It helps leaders shape the words that carry weight, especially when the moment calls for clarity, not control. So let's work it together to say it well. Let's say it in a way that moves people.